Welcome to Ghosty Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within. Welcome to Ghosty Talk Shows. Over to you, Kamal. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you very much, Namsa. And thank you, everybody watching or who's going to watch in the future. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. On average, 90% of people live their lives not questioning their existence. They live with the feeling of being lost or not knowing where to go next, even having no sense of purpose that envelops them. Do you confuse the values that you grew up with, the ones that you were conditioned into by society, by public figures of authority, to your own values? Do you have the feeling of being stuck in a hamster wheel, always running, always grinding, with no sense of direction, with a lack of fulfillment and a lack of belonging into your lives? My name is Kamal Ema. I am a certified NLP trainer, master practitioner, hypnotherapist, and life purpose specialist. And with a combination of ancient Egyptian methodology and wisdom, as well as neuro-linguistic programming, I help you create a foundation to a life of harmony, balance, and purpose.
Kamal, over to you, Dr. Bigot. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you very much, Numsa. Thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world as you watch this. Let me ask you this. Would you love to be able for your important relationships to be successful easily and with a lot of fun? Most of us would love to have successful relationships, particularly relationships who's important to you and things such as in marriage. And yet, study shows that in this modern world that 50% of marriage fail first time around, and then 70%, and on and on. That's really indeed a saddening statistic. There are certain things that brings into that statistic. And so I invite you to keep on listening on how you can create easily a very successful relationship in your life, the relationship that you love, marriage or otherwise. And I am Dr. Birgit Tan, and I am a grief transformation coach, speaker, author, and I'm here to help you create easily and with fun and joy the relationship and the life that you love, such that you create a beautiful, thriving life one day at a time, and a magnificent, thriving life as a whole.
Thank you so much. Dr. Bigot and Kamal. So our topic today is how can we prevent the criticism, manipulations, and blame game in relationships. So sometimes criticism, we meet our spouse, our intention is to love them. Our intention is to love them, but we end up criticizing each other, and we end up manipulating our spouse because we haven't got confidence within ourselves. And when things go wrong in relationships, we start blaming our spouse. The list goes on. The list is a big list. So I'm going to come over to you, Dr. Biget. How do you understand this topic?
Thank you, Numsa. Thank you. So, how do we prevent our criticism, manipulation, and blame games in relationship? Let me ask you, have you ever been blamed or criticized or manipulated in your relationship? Most of us, at some point in your life, if you are an adult, doesn't matter what age adult, you have received criticism in a manner that is not that you would love. Would you love? So, in other words, you have been on the receiving end of this, and did you enjoy that? And if the answer is no, then the first things is, why would you expose somebody whom you care if you actually care about them to any of this? So to me, how to prevent criticism and blaming and the manipulation in relationship. Well, before we want to even prevent that, the questions would be, why do we even care about preventing that, right? I mean, you don't need to prevent something if you don't care about it so much. You know, like, let's say, this is just an example. If you don't care, if you never use something in your household very much, then you probably don't even think about doing maintenance on it, for instance. I have appliances from a little time ago that I never use, and I never even think about dealing with them until one day I need them, so to say. So first of all, why do you even want to do that? Why do you want to prevent criticism, manipulations, and blaming in your relationship? And so that would be the first place to come, I would say, is to ask why, because your why will give you the answer on how you want to do or not do something.
Thank you so much, Dr. Biget. Kamal?
Oh, thank you, Biget, for that. And you see, we're talking about something that happens in general, not only in relationships. Criticisms happen, manipulation happens, blame happens in everywhere we are. And now preventing it, the simple way is not to deal with it. Preventing it in a relationship is simply saying, no, I don't want that. But there's a process to understanding it first. There's a process to knowing if you are being criticized just for the sake of being criticized, or if you're being criticized in a or what one calls a positive criticism, right, for growth. Manipulations, at some point, any of us has been manipulated into something. In general, we are manipulated from a young age into the conditioning of society, into the conditioning of how our parents want us to be. So manipulation exists all around us. How it is done, how it is performed by others, how it is used, that is what is important. Now, if I were to, I'm going to use the word here, manipulate this conversation into a direction that I want for my own gain, it can be unethical, depending on where I see my ethical point. But from my perspective, even if I move it to that way, well, it's ethical for me, doesn't necessarily mean it's ethical for either of you. Or I can use this word. I can influence this conversation into going a different way. Now, what's the difference between manipulation and influence? Now, we're talking semantics here, but at the end of the day, they're both the same way. Manipulation is just taken in a very negative perspective. Now, in relationships, manipulation happens a lot when you have a manipulative person, a narcissistic person in the relationship, when you have a person that is unstable psychologically, perhaps psychopath, or a person that has anger issues or a need that they need to fulfill, right? Our behaviors are an opposite reflection of an unmet need. So if a person is manipulative, that means they need that in their life to be in control. That control comes from a lack of some place. Let's move to the next part, the blame game. Any relationship that wants to have a positive outcome, let's not use positive. Any relationship that wants to move forward and live for a long time and be resourceful to each other and be caring for each other, blame is not a place for it. Whatever relationship it is, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a family, whether it's an intimate relationship, blame has no place in that place. Blame has no place in that relationship, sorry. Because once you start blaming, it means that you are incapable of taking responsibility, no matter what the situation. Blame means you hold anger against that person. Blame means that you want someone to be punished. Now, if we are in a relationship that is to survive, that is to live a long time, blame has no root there. We all do mistakes. We're all human. So why should we be blamed for something that happened? Right? If we don't fail, first attempt in learning, remember that, then we do not learn. So how can we be blamed over something that we didn't know yet? Remember that saying, you only know what you know? And that's because at this right moment, you can only know as much as you know right now. And whatever you do right now is the best that you can get out of it. So blame is very similar to me, in my perspective at least, is very similar to holding a grudge and regretting doing something. Regret in our life means nothing at all. It's pointless to think of regret. It's a waste of energy. Now, how to go into the prevention method is a different perspective, I believe, but we can get to that once you have something to ask us, Nomsa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Biket and Kamal. So the blame and criticism. So Kamal says, I like Dr. Biket when you say, why would you expose someone we care about to boost it? Basically, why would we criticize someone we love? Because we want to boost our own egos, and that's why people criticize each other in relationships. But I can tell you this based on my experience myself in the past. For me, criticizing my ex, it was the knowledge. I didn't have the knowledge on how to communicate. And I was completely, because sometimes it's psychological problems, but there was nothing wrong in my mind. The only problem that I had was I didn't know how to communicate my want. And that's why when things go wrong in relationship, instead of me communicating, I'll criticize and say, we didn't do this because of what you've done or because you are late at work. Instead of me rearranging things, maybe we'll criticize. And manipulations. And there's a thing that I used to do that I basically 10 years ago with my ex. Like if I'm dating somebody and if they did things that I didn't like, or if there was something that I didn't like, instead of me communicating as well, I will start with trying to communicate, and then I will be like, because I'm frustrated, maybe we have to take a break. At that moment, I felt that I was doing the right thing, but it was the lack of knowledge, not knowing how to communicate, how to behave in that relationship. And when it comes to games, playing games, people think playing games is something that is extremely. When you tell somebody today, we need to break up, and tomorrow we need to get along, we need to get it on. Yesterday we get break it, and then next week we get it along. That's playing games. But that's what I did as well. And I didn't know, I didn't have the knowledge. Breaking up, it means breaking up, saying goodbye. But when you have a problem with someone, it doesn't mean breaking up. But to me, it was break up. I'm frustrated. You've hurt me. You did this. And I think we should break up. That was how I dealt with the relationships. And until when I started taking personal development, that's when it came to me that actually, this is what I did. This is what I did. And it was the lack of knowledge for me. And now, as a matchmaker, it's like when, let's say we come to Ngozi talk show, and maybe somebody says last minute, I'm not coming on. I've learned that instead of me going to the blame game, I've learned to say I don't have control. Whatever happens in life, I don't have control. And somebody can get sick, or anything can happen in life. That is the same with the relationship. My ex didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the knowledge. So that's why I ended up being in the blaming game and manipulation. And sometimes it's our childhood attachment. Sometimes some people can actually be destroyed psychologically, like what Kamal was saying, because of the games in a relationship. You will be surprised how many games people play when it comes to relationship. So that's why I chose this topic. And sometimes even I have clients, and the clients sometimes they'll call me and say, have you matched me with, do you have a client for me? And if I say I don't have someone that meets your criteria, they say, can you remove me in your books? So I'm like, can you explain to me, why do I need to remove you in my books? And then they're like, because this is not working. And I'm like, if you come to me and say you are looking for love, that's what you're going to get. But just because I haven't got anyone today, it does not make me a bad person. So you're going to have to be patient unless you want me to match you with anybody that comes to me. So that's when you have to understand, well, how do we resolve it, Kamal? It's all start with you. Everything. That's how you resolve all these manipulations.
Look, manipulation, like I said in the beginning, it happens a lot in our lives, right? And this is a part of our self-centeredness that speaks when we are playing that manipulation game, or the blame game even, right? It's the ego, not the ego from Freud, but the ego, the self, right? Manipulation is about control. It's about having the upper hand. And very simply, if you don't want to give in to manipulation, you just get out of the relationship. It's as simple as that, basically. Yes, at times it is difficult. At times it's not possible because of certain situations, because of whatever it is. But then you can't stop yourself from wanting to being the victim, basically. You're forcing yourself to be a victim if you are continuously playing that manipulation game. The easiest way, like I said again, to avoid a manipulation game is just not to play the game. It's very simple. Because once you engage a manipulated person, you're done. Unless you know how to reframe the situation, unless you know how to re-manipulate the situation, unless you know how to answer back in a way that is not defensive or justifying, or because that's what manipulative people do, right? They try to put you in a frame set where you have to justify yourself, you have to explain yourself, or you have to defend yourself. Now, under no circumstances do you have to do either of those three to anybody, right? When you do that, you are putting yourself in a manipulative perspective. This is an example that my mentor uses, Steve McVeigh, and he says, actually, the greatest manipulators are teenagers, right? Now, imagine you have your 15-year-old daughter. She comes back home, and she tells you, you know what? Tonight, I found this wonderful college guy, and we're going out to a party tonight. The automatic reaction is like, hell no, not happening, right? But then that teenage girl, she tells you, don't you trust me? Now you are forced, you've been manipulated now into a place where you have to justify, you have to defend yourself, or you have to explain. Now, how would you answer that? That's a teenage person. And we all know that teenagers are the best manipulative creatures on this planet, right? And these are situations that happen, right? The best answer would be, of course, darling, I trust you. And of course you can go. I'll just get dressed and come with you. Now she's put back in a position where like, no, that's not happening, right? Now you've taken control over that situation. What I'm trying to explain here is that manipulation can be, as you mentioned, Nomsa, it's a game. But once you engage in that game, be prepared to use those three, either justify, explain, or defend yourself, unless you know how to flip it. Salespeople manipulate everybody in very quickly into buying something that you don't want, something more expensive, right? How do you want to control that in a relationship? Is up to you. Now, if games are in a relationship, then definitely it's not a good relationship. And I'm using the word good because it's unhealthy to be in a relationship that is based on games. Relationships are meant to be fluid, harmonious, frank with each other, honorable, containing that integrity that you first signed upon when you decided to be in a relationship with each other. If you deviate from that integrity, then that relationship is unhealthy, no matter what the circumstance. Parent, child, lovers, friendship, whatever it is, at least from my perspective. So we go back to the root of it. How do you prevent that manipulation? Well, you can get in control of the conversation. Exactly like that father did with their 15-year-old child, right? Or like a salesperson trying to sell you a car, and they see that there's a wedding ring. Oh, are you married? Oh, yes, I'm married. Do you have kids? Yes, I have kids. Oh, okay, wait. Then leave this car. Come and take this car. It's a little bit above your budget, but this one has these safety features and these safety features for your children. You care about the safety of your children, don't you? Again, you're like, of course I care. See, you're explaining yourself. You're justifying yourself. You're defending yourself. But if you take control of that situation, you say, well, does that mean that the other car doesn't have the safety regulations? You're trying to sell me a car that doesn't have the safety regulations? You've taken control of the conversation. But then again, this conversation, this situation, this relationship is unhealthy. And from my perspective, just walk away from any unhealthy relationship. Any relationship that contains that manipulation, that contains that, oh, you're not doing this, or that blame frame, or constant criticism. I was in a relationship like that. There was constant criticism, there was constant manipulation, constant blame. And even if I took responsibility for things that I did, the other party never took responsibility for anything. So walk away, because there's no winning in a manipulative environment. You're both losers.
take it. We are losers.
That is very interesting. I love excuse me. I love your insight, Kamal. And it is very interesting to me. I think to me it's all go back to the money. To me, a lot of time people manipulate because we want control. But why do we want control? In the majority of the times, it's because we have an attachment to something. That's why you want the outcome to be your attachment, and now it in a good number of time. It's an attachment mix to something, and in many cases, it's also in an established relationship. Now, as a teenager or something like that, it's one thing, but it is an attachment that often mixed with fear, particularly if you are already in the relationship. It's a lot. You might have an attachment to an outcome, and many times you might have an attachment of that outcomes not working out the way you want to, and therefore you manipulate. Now, blaming and criticisms is a slightly different thing. And also at the same time, things such as blaming and I love how you say it's, if you are in a relationship that is a lot of blaming, criticisms, and manipulations, then it's not a healthy one. Some relationship I have seen, excuse me, relationship. Now, it does not necessarily a relationship that I would want to be in, and perhaps not a relationship that you want to be in either. But some people, it's their operation, so to say. It's their mode of operation, and some people seems to just thrive in there, where it's both parties. It's almost like a game of their wit, it's literally. And so for some of us, that's something that serve you. So everybody different. If it's something that serve you, by all means continue playing your game, because at the end of the day, if you think of life really is a game to a good degree. We all do things such that we want certain outcome, and some of us do it in a very open, straightforward way, which for some people everything is up to interpretations. Actually, for some people, even when you're doing thing in a very straightforward open outcome, they feel manipulated just because they do, and regardless of what's going on. I know a persons who, even when you come to these persons with best intention, they believe you are trying to manipulate them for something. And what is really the definition of manipulations in anyway? And so, in other words, even with this talk, if you really think about it, we are to a degree, just like Kamal gave an example, or somebody, perhaps you listens to a personal development guru or this talk, when we express our opinion and we express it with an intentions that you agree with us, that's actually a form of manipulation. And so it's a matter of how you take it. Now, back to the original topic though, how you prevent manipulations, blame, and criticism, then what I initially was saying is actually you need to ask yourself, do you want to prevent that? First of all, because for some people they don't. They thrive in such a situations, and it's all your your highest good. And for many of us, we do not want to. But then you want to ask yourself, why do you even want to prevent that? And remember, everything needs to be a two-way street. So you want to prevent that from happening with you as the recipient, but also going out. And so to me, it's always back to the why. Why do you even want to prevent that? So, for instance, it depend on your role in a relationship, and it could be a romantic relationship, but it could also be a different form of relationship. And indeed, every time you communicate with anybody, even if you just stand there in a room and not say a thing, and you are interacting with somebody, you're creating a relationship. So relationship is a very broad thing, and depend on your role in that relationship. Sometimes criticism is important. Now there are ways to express criticism in a constructive manner, but if it's just the word criticism itself, a lot of time we associate it with negative thing. But there is such a thing of constructive, gentle criticism. So it's always go back to your why, and depend on your why, it's actually will determine what you do next. If is your why is because you want to serve yourself, or is your why is because you want for the better interest for every party involved in a relationship.
Dr. Bigot, I like it when you say it depends with your why. Because when you are in a relationship, I feel that you shouldn't have to be in a situation where you feel you have to prevent the criticism, or you feel that you have to prevent any blame or anything. A relationship it comes with problems, but not with problems of manipulations. For me, basically, before I did my personal development, if a man comes to me and says, I can't live without you, I'll find it very cute and very romantic. But now, if you come to me and say, I can't live without you, then I know that there is something wrong with you in the head. What was the other one? The other one, it says, you are my whole wide world. Basically, I'm like, seriously? Your mom is your whole wide world, your father is your whole wide world, and I'm like, no, I don't believe that. But if you were telling me before that, I would believe it. And if you're making plans for me, like with preparing for me, there's a difference between giving somebody an advice and being there for them and helping them to grow than making plans for them. I haven't got time to make plans for my spouse, because how he thinks is his life. I'm there to be, as a woman, I'm there to be a mentor. If he comes to me and say, Nomsa, this is what I'm doing, I have to find out, what part do you want me to play? So do you want me to support you, or is there anything knowledge that you want me to help you with? Not me planning and say, baby, I have this, you've got to do this. No, I can't do that. That is his own thing. Or maybe somebody sometimes, the other manipulation people do is when they meet each other, relationships, everything goes fast. They want to get married very quickly. They want to start a family very quickly. And like Dr. Bigot was saying, you have to remember your why. I think that's when you have to ask yourself, why do I need to get married so quickly? If I'm going to get married with this person, if I love them, why can't I wait and get to know them very, very well? So that's where your why has to come in. Or maybe if a man tells me that this is something that I will not believe, if you told me 10 years ago, actually, Nomsa, you are better than any women I've dated, I will not believe that. But before, if you come to me and you tell me that, I'll believe it, but not now. Because a man who knows what they want, who knows what they have, they will not speak that language to me. They will just speak to me and say, Nomsa, I love you. You make me happy. And I say, baby, thank you so much. So if you say you are better than other women, I'll be like, I don't think so. Then it is a manipulation to me. And someone flips when you are talking to them, and then they flips, and then they start telling you that it's because of this, or it's because I have not had this, or it's because they start blaming me that they flipped it because of what I did. So I'll believe then, but now, no, I will not believe it. So those are the things that I shouldn't have to defend myself. I know relationships are not perfect, but I like to fight on the real battle. I like the real battle, not the battle of me being in an abusive relationship. So I think it's very, very important for every woman and every man that is watching that if you enter a relationship, you have to be prepared to love you. You have to love yourself. Dr. Bigot, you talk about Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor talk about creating your own image a lot. So you have to create your own image and enter that relationship knowing what you want, and then change things around based on accommodating the other person. That's how I see what that love is about. Love is not about games. It's not about giving somebody some attitude. You see, I used to do this when my ex comes from work, and they come in and open the door. If there's something that I didn't like, they'll be, "Hi, Nomsa, I'm quiet. I'm not talking to you." That was 10 years ago, my silence trip. At the time, I thought it was sexy, but now when I look back, oh, I feel ashamed. Over to you, Kamal.
It's interesting. But you see, that's you have defined now your world as what is manipulative and what is not. But that's, again, it's your definition of the world, right? It's your perspective. I could easily say from my perspective that maybe romancing is not something that you're interested in anymore. Of course, now you're in a relationship, you're in you have your partner. And if your partner were to come to you and present you with a poem or something like that, I don't know what would go on in your mind. Oh, he wants something from me. It's like,
oh, now believe that, as long as I'm not better than other women.
No, but it's, you see, it's there's a fine line between look, we are selfish human beings, all of us. As humanity, as humans, we are selfish in essence. We want things for ourselves, and very rarely do you find people that get into relationships without having a reason of wanting something for themselves, fulfill a need, whether it's love, whether it's care, whether it's networking, whether it's reaching a certain place or area or stature. There's always some sort of need that needs to be covered. And fulfilling that need sometimes requires that sort of manipulation, if you will, right? Now, if you read what is it called? How to Influence People and Make Friends, or How to Make Friends and Influence People, which was a massive boom of Dale Carnegie and how it's done and all of that. Is that really influencing a person, or is that being manipulative? Now, I'm not criticizing his book or his teachings, right? Dale Carnegie was a fantastic person. I mean, when we're talking about psychology and self-development. But I'm just questioning the idea of, now, if I go into an interview and I do what they call rapport building, right? I move the same way. They come forward, I come forward. They cross their arms, I cross my legs. You know, we have that same birds of a feather, as one says, right? Birds of a feather flock together. So if I make the same gestures, the same moves without imitating, but to make them feel in rapport with me, if I connect with them on, oh, you like, for instance, I don't know, swimming. Oh, yes, I know. You know, the last year's swimmer is the champion. He comes from there. Oh, I know this person. Now I'm connecting on a different level because I want a certain job. Is that influencing, or is that manipulation? So when we talk about manipulation and influence, we're talking about semantics, right? When you talk about manipulation, you talk about ethics. Ethics is very individual. What you consider manipulation, perhaps I consider it influencing. What you consider influence in a positive perspective, my measure of ethics consider it manipulation. So again, these semantics come from a perspective, right? Criticism, again, comes from a perspective. Why are you criticizing that person? What do you benefit out of it? Is it criticism? Is it a growth criticism, like what they call positive criticism, so that that person grows and understands and learns better? Or is it criticism just to put somebody down? The blame that you are offering in that relationship, is it so that you don't take responsibility for one of your mistakes? Or is it blaming the person so that that person realizes that they made a mistake and they apologize for it? So again, is it your ego speaking and you wanting that apology? Now, if we go back to the root of the conversation, everything can be considered a manipulation or an influence. Everything can be considered a criticism. What I'm talking about right here can be criticism about how you lead your life, Nomsa, or how Bigit thinks. The question is, do you want to take it as a criticism, or do you want to take it as growth, or do you want to take it as an opinion? Whatever we do in life can be criticized, can be manipulated, can be blamed. Do you accept it or do you not accept it? You have choices. And back to that same things that we always seem to fall into. It is a matter of choice. Choose to constantly be criticized. Do you choose manipulative relationship? Do you choose to be blamed and play the role of the victim? It's up to the choice that humans make.
Is Kamal sound okay to you, Dr. Bigot? Does it sound okay? His audio?
He there is a lot of interference.
Are you muted?
Oh, I'm not muted.
Dr. Bigot, are you muted?
I'm not muted.
Can you mute yourself? Let's see.
Oh, I was muted. I'm not muted right now. I was muted, but
all right. Well, anyway, I was going on that choice perspective, right? Because manipulation, staying in that manipulation game, staying in that blame frame, staying in that criticism is a choice that we make. And it is up to the individual to say no. It is up to the individual to say, that's enough. It is up to the individual to say, you know what? I can handle it myself. But you need to be ready for it. People stay in relationships because they don't know how to handle their life alone. People get into relationships very quickly after they break up with another person without having time, giving themselves time to grow, to understand what it means to be alone and what they want in their life, because they're afraid to look deep into themselves. And that's when the biggest mistakes happen, because they think they know better. The only reason you should actually, and I'm saying the word should, get into a relationship is to have growth out of it, is to have support out of it, is to have that shoulder that you can cry on without being judged. So when we talk about support, growth, and non-judgmental, that is the complete opposite of that criticism, of the manipulation and the blame. So back to what Bigot was saying, it's like, what is your why of that relationship? To me, if you don't have these three in a relationship, it's a waste of time. But you're not ready to leave that waste of time because it's a learning perspective for you. You're not ready to move on because you haven't learned the lesson yet. Or you are not ready to move on because you don't know what to do with yourself. So the choice is yours again.
Dr. Biggett?
Thank you. Can you hear me? That's a lot of my screen is okay. Great. So yeah, I love that. It is, you know, it's always back to perceptions and your why in a good degree, and because it really, if how you prevent manipulations, back to the original topic, how do you prevent criticisms, manipulation, and blame? You literally, everything in life is starting with choosing and decision. You choose to not do that anymore. You decide that you're going to stop, and then you improve, you learn, you choose, you decide, and then you learn by becoming more aware. As Numsa say, give a brilliant example just just now today of, at some point she was not aware of certain behavior is not particularly in her mind now desirable. Now for some people, everybody different. I know some people who still find, well, that's actually depend on their agenda. They prefer you do just silent treatment than actually having to be in a conversation because they are not comfortable being in a conversation. So you see, it's always the why, and then the other part is always going back to why are you even in that relationship? Like Kamal said, is it for romantic purposes? Is it for networking? Is it for business? Is it for friendship? So, and so to me, and perhaps to everybody else, it's different, but you want to know what's serve you best in a relationship in an all-win way. It's not just serving the other person. It's not just serving you. To me, a wonderful relationship, an ideal, a thriving relationship is you actually has an open communication where you say, okay, what's serving us all in the best possible way? And then from there, we move into how can we be of service if whatever the relationship it is. Now, a lot of people are not are not trained to sit down from the beginning and say, okay, this is what I would love from a relationship, and this is why, because perhaps you are not comfortable doing that. My partner, from the beginning, he sat down and he says, you know, this is how I see life. This is how I see relationship. Very simple and clear. Now, is many people have his level of confidence. He is a very confident and assertive person, to say the very least. Most people don't. Most people say, I wonder what he's gonna think. I wonder what he's gonna think. Well, I wonder. And so that's when you start manipulating. Now imagine I live in Los Angeles. And many times you might have heard the so-called gossip, the tale of rich men and wonderful younger women. Now you might say, well, those women are manipulating. We're talking about manipulations. The older, much more economically stable gentlemen. Many people will say that. Now, living in that society itself and knowing many people who are in that form of relationship, some of the gentlemen in those form of relationship don't want anything else's. They don't want a woman who actually think too much, talk too much, or anything. They have their business, their life. things they have to deal with the whole darn day and the whole darn time. And they basically want somebody to say, they come home, smile at them, have fun, here's we'll buy you whatever, and very simple. And when they're being presented with a different form of personality, they're like, this is just too much for me. I'm not dealing with this. So is it a manipulations? Is he manipulating her or is he manipulating him? So you want to go back to your why, and then you just simply choose. If it is what's serving you, then you choose to perhaps to say, okay, we're going to have an open communications, and then choose that you are going to, and decide that you're going to do things differently if that's what's serving you and the other partner. But if that's not what's serving you and the people in your relationship, then perhaps you might not even want to do that.
That is so true, Dr. Bickett. I'm afraid, Kamal, that is really, really true. And Dr. Bickett, you talk about your spouse. He likes it very simple and very clear. To be very simple, a simple life, and a very clear path. I'm like that. I don't want games. I don't think I can date somebody who wants to play games with me. I like a simple life. If you want something, or this is who you are, you're very clear. I want you to be very clear and straightforward of who you are and the things that you don't like. I do not like complicating things, complicated life. I used to entertain a complicated life 10 years ago. But when I did my personal development, I had to understand what is love, basically. Love is for me to actually accept the person for who they really are as individual, and knowing that we are both different and we like different things. And I hear some people, I meet clients, they'll be like, I need somebody who likes this, I need somebody. I'm like, you're gonna be waiting, because there's some interest that builds a relationship with that, but there's some that destroys a relationship. It's okay to have a different interest, but as long as they are not like traveling or anything big. So I always tell my clients that it's okay to love different things, but if you say this is what I'm gonna want, and basically clients, when they come to me, they're like going to Waitrose. But when you go to Waitrose, there is a reality that the food that you want, you have to pay the price for it. So I always tell them that it's like you have to check whether you shop at Waitrose, Tesco's, or which supermarket you shop, or whatever the designer shop you shop. But there's a price for it. If you are shopping because you want this, you want that, and you don't put your one first, you're going to pay the price in that relationship. So that's what Dr. Bickett says, that there are some men that likes younger girls. If somebody wants a younger girl and they can put up with a younger girl, why not? And there are younger girls, you hear them saying, I do not want to date men age like me because they're nightmares. And you ask them why, and they're like, they always want this, they always manipulate, they always play games. And I'm tired of it. Everyone has a reason with why they want the things that they want. Like Dr. Pickett was saying, you have to know your why. I get 25-year-olds and they're like, I don't want to date somebody 25, 26, 27. They want to play games with me, and I'm done with all that. And you hear them, basically, they're like, I'm done with games. So I'm like, okay. So like Kamal, you were saying, everything you do in life is a choice. We all have a choice in life. So I know my choices in life, and I know my spouse's choices might be different, but as long as they're not gonna destroy our relationship. So for me, basically, I had to surrender everything to God and say, God, you know what? I'm tired of playing games. I'm tired of dating people like this. Could you please give me somebody that I'm gonna get along with? But the moment I spend time with my spouse, the moment I'm like, he's just like me. And when he speaks to his family, he doesn't play games, because sometimes the families they play games. It's like, it's very straightforward. It's like, Tell me what you want. Even me, if I want to go shopping, I just say, can I have your card, please? And he goes, it's my money. I'm like, yes, I know it's your money, but I'm borrowing it. As long as you can afford it, this is how much I'm going to spend, and can you afford it? He says, yes, if he can. If he says no, I sit on the sofa, watch TV. I don't get angry. Honestly, come on, Dr. Bigot, I do not get angry. If the man says, if me, I know that I can't afford what I want to buy, and I say his card, he says he can't afford it, I sit down and watch TV, because I know it's the truth. If somebody says they can't afford it, there's no point in me trying to manipulate and playing games. It's not going to get me anywhere. But before 10 years ago, I would try to do something for me to get what I want. Over to you, Kamal. Before we leave, any words of encouragement, please?
Well, the last words of encouragement is, today I chose a quote from Ernest Hemingway, from Men Without Women. And I felt it was very relatable to this topic. It's just a reminder of the choices that we make and who we are. And Hemingway said, the most painful thing is losing yourself in the process of loving someone too much and forgetting that you are special too. So I'll leave the audience with that for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kamal. And over to you, Dr. Bigot, please.
Yes, thank you so much, Numsa. In relationship as well as in everything else, at the end of the day, there is a saying, know your why, and then you make your choices and create your decisions. And so, to me, if you know what you want, you create your reality. So whatever it is that you want, and there's no right or wrong answer, but know what you want, and you will create your reality if you take the actions up toward that. And if that's a better relationship, whether it's a relationship with no criticisms or with lots of criticisms, you are the author of your life.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot. For me, I leave you with whatever you do in life, in your relationship, stay with hope. Because when you have hope in your relationship, you're not going to play mind games, and believe in your spouse, believe in yourself. It's very, very important. If you don't believe in your spouse, you're going to play games, you're going to manipulate your spouse. But if you believe in yourself and believe in your relationship, there is no need for you to manipulate somebody else. If you believe that you are in an abusive relationship, get out of it. There is no excuse. Make no excuse for somebody who's manipulating you, who's playing mind games with you. There are no excuse for that. I know some people believe that they can make excuse for that, but I don't believe in that. I believe that get out. It's not easy, but you can do it. So it's very, very important. So we are here Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time. It goes the talk show. And for those who are watching audience, please, I know we always have audience, but they never communicate with us. So if you're watching, just try to communicate with us and just comment or get involved to the conversation. I'm sure you guys have some advice that you can say, or agreement to say, oh yeah, I agree with that, or my experience has been this. Everybody has had bad and good experience. So please communicate with us next time when you come, and press some heart button and share some love with everybody else on the video. Thank you so much, guys. God bless and live with grace. Are you guys going to say goodbye?
Thank you.